Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. We are once again in Stormworks, checking out our diving ship. Now, I've got a little bit more gameplay for you. I know in the last episode we messed around a little bit. I showed you the diving process, but today's episode I want to show you this cool little guy. So we are going to be working on an ROV today. But before we get into all of that, we're not going to finish it off in the episode. Just because it's a lot of off-camera work. So I'll finish it off camera. I'll do a lot of the block placing in the episode. But I did want to kind of give you guys the runaround and go through the diving ops now with the submersible. So we will do that. We're not going to do all of that right now, but we will we'll definitely get into that in a little bit later down the road in this episode. But I do want to do a little bit of construction. Obviously, we're not going to work on the actual mothership today. But we do need to work on this ROV, which will help us with pretty much all of our underwater construction tasks. Between that and the cranes that we'll have on board, you should be able to manipulate things down under the water pretty easily. So that's kind of the game plan. You guys can see I'm just lowering the winch in the background. And it's painfully slow because, that's just how the game functions. But we're not going to do any of this right now. So we're going to get right into the building. And we will come back to this in a few minutes once we get some more building done. Behold the brick. And this time we're going to do a little bit something different. We're going to do some negative manufacturing, some subtractive manufacturing instead of some additional manufacturing. If you know ball, you know what I'm saying. I'm not going to get into that. Anyways, we've got this block and I'm going to start carving it like a giant block of marble. And this is basically the space allotted for our ROV. Now I went in the off camera, I went in and I just copied the space that we have. It is an uneven space. I know right now we are currently on an even or odd amount of blocks. This will be an even wide build, which is, I'm sure some of you will have your opinions on that, but I don't know. At this point, I think you guys should come to expect that I'm going to do something asymmetrical. But it ends up looking pretty nice. We're still working on some of the controls, so it doesn't control 100% how I want it to, but the basic plan for this is it's going to be an underwater construction ROV. It's not going to have a tether or anything. It's going to be battery powered, but it will have tooling on it. So you will have a gripper, a end effector, and a magall. So you will be able to, when I said gripper, I meant welder. Anyway, so you will be able to do a bunch of stuff with it. And the other nice thing is, and I'll show you guys this later in the episode once we go diving. What's cool is the divers can control this thing with a seat on the tool chest that you can throw into the water. So I'm going to have an ROV station on the actual boat itself where you can control this. But if need be, the divers will also have their own access to working on this, which will be pretty cool. So right now I'm just getting these pistons in. I'm just going to place 3 pistons vertically, and those are going to act as our arms for each 3 of those tools. And then you will be able to just cycle through them. But I am going to speed it up a little bit. We've got quite a bit of building to do. I don't want to bore you guys with 20, 30 minutes of me just building an ROV, which I guess you did come by to watch me build. So maybe it's not that boring, but at the same time, I do want to show you the diving as well. And, we've got some stuff to do. So, this thing, in essence, is going to be a nightmare for me to build, mostly because we're going to do, well, you guys are going to see me mess around with a ballast tank. It's not going to actually have a ballast tank. It's just going to be there to kind of balance the weight, the final mass when I need it to. But we will be controlling it all with props. So there's going to be 2 props in the rear for forward back. There's going to be 2 props in the rear for pitch. And then there's going to be 1 prop at center mass for up and down. It's going to be a very weird layout, but I should be able to get a control system working for it. And then the rest should be pretty simple. I'm not going to add any crazy features. It's going to be a pretty manual ROV, but it kind of doesn't really need to be super automatic. There's no real reason for that. So the rest of the operation is pretty manual, and you're going to have divers down there doing manual work. So, it's okay if it's manual. But for now, we're starting to pretty it up. You guys can see it's starting to take shape, look a little bit less like a brick and a little bit more like a little submersible ROV. Now, I did toy around with the idea of a keel. That's just dumb. It's not going to work. Plus, we're on an even wide build now. So we'll just level it out with some weight blocks and some batteries later on. And that should be plenty enough. Now, I don't want it to sink. I kind of want it to just be neutrally buoyant. That way, when you're not controlling it, it will just sit there idle. But this is the overall kind of shape that I'm going for. Now it's just really up to me to cram everything into the actual submarine, the ROV itself, submarine, whatever we're going to call it. And I'm going to just throw on some sliding grippers here, which later on will get removed because I realize that's a problem. I don't want to add a release button to them, but they will help line up the ROV when it comes to putting it back into the little storage area. Now, I'm just moving out of the harbor into the hangar. I want to get a look at this thing on the land. Plus, we need to hook up the controls. So give me a second to do that. And I'm not going to really bore you guys with all of that. It's just composite straight to a radio. So we've got the radio in. None of the controls are in. Obviously, I hooked up the logic to the piston arms and whatnot. You can see me cycling through them right now. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. And now we've got to go on to adding the props and the control systems and all of that fun stuff. So
it's supposed to feel.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life. I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, bitch, hand me the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag, cause I sing what I mean and I bring it to the mad light. Ain't got time to kill, I got time to feel, I took the red pill, I know life's short so I wanna live real, but how's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel? They wanna say my name, but they holding back. They wanna say they hate, but they know it's cap. I ain't play no games, I just do that's fact. And I don't feel no shame, it's a mood you lack. I go crazy, nah bitch I ain't lazy. Track after track, I work on the shit daily. Pass me the jack, right as fuel, got me hazy. About to unpack all these things I've been chasing. I've got visions in my head, like memories after death. To be a legend instead of something you can forget. I'm living up every breath, I'd rather lead than be led. I'll fill the seats as I spread with every word that I've said. How's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel?
Okay, so we kind of got some controls done. You guys can see it's sort of controlling, but I left some of the logic in there, but we're gonna leave it there. I'm gonna throw the tool chest into the water. We're back in the real world, and we're gonna go over diving. Now, I didn't obviously do all of the controls in that, but the control setup for the ROV is pretty simple. Like I said, I added some of the logic so you guys could get the gist for what I'm doing. I went back and didn't use the actual add and subtract blocks, obviously. But it's just like tank steering with the left and right, and basically I'm just combining the same principle for the roll and the yaw and all that. So I'm just adding control systems for stability as well as the actual way to move the ship around. So it's just using multiple inputs with a gyro. I'm not using anything fancy. It is very bare bones, but for now, let's get this bad boy picked up. I need to connect our magnet to it, and then we'll pick it up and we'll throw it into the water. And then we'll throw the diving bell into the water, and we'll go check it out under the water, obviously. So lift this bad boy up. Shouldn't have too much of an issue. Make sure you don't slam it into the crane. It's a piece of garbage anyways. It's not sensitive equipment. But anyways, we'll bring this around. Try not to hit anything else. And then so gently we'll drop it into the ocean. We'll make sure, we put it down nice and soft this time. I'm sure later on I'm just going to end up throwing it into the water. But anyways, drop that thing, and it should be good to go. Now, it will just keep itself kind of stable without any controls, so it shouldn't really wander off or anything. It'll just kind of sit there. So you don't really need to babysit it. We don't have any controls on the actual ship yet. They're only on the tool chest that we threw into the water. But I'll go over all that. As you guys can see, there's a lot of work done to the ROV kind of off camera, but I didn't want to bore you guys with the in and out of the workbench. You guys saw in the time lapse there's a lot of that was going on, in conjunction with that and the fact that a lot of what I was doing wasn't really blocks. It was math. I figured you guys probably didn't want to see all of that. But for now, we've got the ROV in the water, so I'm just bringing the crane in, and the next step to all of this is to hook up the diving bell to the main crane. So I've got it sped up a little bit here just because the ropes are so slow in this game. Well, not the ropes, the pulleys, which is obnoxious, and I erased the crane. Awesome. Anyways, so they're really slow. You guys can see we've got a ton of slack behind the actual pulleys, which is great. But anyways, you just connect the magnet to the yellow top of the diving bell. And at this point, the divers would be getting from the habitat into the diving bell, obviously. We're not going to go through all that. I'm a one-man band today. Maybe later on we'll get some henchmen, we'll call them, or minions. But anyways, we're ready to go, so we'll throw the tool chest. That's the tool chest I keep talking about. That's what I'm just going to keep calling it. And you guys can see we've kind of got a rough landing spot, so hopefully it stays upright. It looks like we'll be good. Yep, we'll be good. So nothing too interesting going on down there. I just chose to pick a random landmark under the water. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to find the depth that we're at. So we're at about 55 meters, and that means I need to give out about 50 meters to the umbilical cord. I'm not going to be super precise with this. The main idea, though, is that you just don't want the diving bell sitting on the ground. You want it slightly, like a few meters above the ground. That way, if the ship moves, the diving bell can move with it. It doesn't sound safe, but that's much safer than leaving it on the ground with slack, trust me. Because eventually the slack becomes not slack, and then the diving bell gets dragged across the sea floor and people die. But anyways, good to go on that. So we got that part in the water as well. And that is stage 3 of the whole underwater diving operation stuff. So we'll bring this all the way up, just get it out of the way. And you'll notice now that the bell is in the water with the umbilical cord, that frees up the big crane. So you can do construction with the big crane underwater now, and we are just descending down to the seafloor. So we've got our depth gauge, we've got all our emergency equipment in here. You can just leave that hatch open, which is awesome. And we're just going to wait for our depth gauge to stop going down. And once it's done with that, we'll hop out and we'll explore a little bit. But that is pretty much really the gist of kind of the diving. So I'm not going to wait for the bell. We're going to head down to the tool chest. You can see the ROV is just floating up there, and I want to show you the ROV now. So we'll get into the control seat, and we've got this nice little screen I made. And yeah, other than that, not too complicated. We've just got a nav ball, a couple of gauges, and our tools with a bunch of lights. So it's pretty simple. But I wanted it to be pretty simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. It's just going to make the game a little bit laggy. And let's be honest, if you're choosing to do construction with this instead of the crane, you're going to struggle regardless. So that's just kind of how the game works. So, but yeah, that is the little ROV we made. You guys can see it sort of controls. I need to obviously tune the controls a little bit. But we are able to kind of navigate around as we please, pretty gently and slowly. But other than that, there's not a whole lot more for the underwater diving aspect of this ship, which is cool. So we can kind of move on to the interior and start getting the boat a little bit more polished up, which is nice. But if you guys do have any features for the interior of the ship, do let me know. We've got plenty of space on the inside of this one, and obviously I don't want to just fill it with bunk rooms and stuff. So any cool ideas like that, let me know. Anything you guys want me to add to the underwater diving part, let me know. I will probably be releasing a build challenge soon for this, where I'll have you guys build some underwater modules. Kind of perfect timing with Subnautica too. But anyways, guys, that is pretty much all I have for you in this one. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for staying. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this series, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll catch you all in the next one, and hopefully we will make this ROV a little bit less jank. But that's it for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.